Hey, what's up guys, it's me your boy Orabancast aka Vinish back here with another brand new video and I hope you guys are having a great day. So I'm here to give my Dutch Grand Prix weekend's driver rating. So without any further ado, let's get right into the video guys. Well, starting off with our pole sitter and race winner, Max Verstappen. Well, what do I give him other than a full on 10 on 10 points? Well, he maximized on his result and considering the kind of darts that the nature was throwing at him, he still came out on top on all of that. He made no mistakes. So a clean weekend from Max Verstappen, so I'm going to give him a solid 10 on 10. So moving on to his teammate Sergio Perez. Well, the qualifier didn't really go on his side. He qualified P7 and made a good strategical call, but he made one too many errors, and I can probably excuse the lockup that he had towards the end of the race, losing second place to Fernando Alonso, because the situation was getting treacherous as we basically went on with the race. So other than that, the pit entry speeding offense or him hitting the pit wall was absolutely on him. So yes, I feel like Sergio Perez did not have a good weekend. It was kind of a topsy-turvy weekend, and he finished P4 when he should have easily finished second or third. I'm gonna give Sergio Perez a 6 out of 10. So moving on to Fernando Alonso. Well, considering the car that he had underneath him, which is probably the second best this weekend, I feel like he maximized on his result absolutely. With the fast lap, he finished the race with 19 points. So I'm gonna give Fernando Alonso a 10 on 10. Moving on to his teammate Lance Stroll. Well, we can't say the same for him. He's qualified P11 and he finished the race P11, and considering the chaos that we had in the race, I feel like he should have been able to propel his way upward and finish in the points. At least a P6, P7 was definitely on the cards for that car, and he finished P11. So I'm gonna give Lance Stroll a 4 out of 10. Moving on to Lando Norris. Well, Lando qualified P2 and the team bottled the strategy with both their drivers, so it's not really on the driver. So he got absolutely mugged by all the drivers who switched on to the intermediates when the rain hit the first time. So he and his teammate Oscar Piastri lost one too many places, and they managed to recover to finish the race P7 with Lando Norris. So I'm gonna give Lando Norris a 7 out of 10 for that. And for his teammate Oscar Piastri, who qualified P8 for the race and finished the race P9, and with the kind of strategy fumble that McLaren did with both their drivers, I feel like he managed to recover well. So I'm gonna give Oscar Piastri a 7 out of 10 as well. So moving on to George Russell. Well, he qualified P3, and again, similar to McLaren, it was kind of a strategy fumble from Mercedes as well with both their drivers, and it really pushed both their drivers down the field, and both the drivers managed to recover well, and George Russell picked up a puncture on the last lap, which meant he boxed. I'm still gonna give him a 8 out of 10 because I feel like it was not his mistake. He qualified well and was doing a good race. If it wasn't for the strategy fumble, he should have been in the top 5 fight. So I'm gonna give George Russell a 8 out of 10. So moving on to his teammate Lewis Hamilton. He qualified P13, and considering his teammate qualified P3, it was not a good qualifying session for Lewis, which is pretty rare to see because Lewis is honestly one of those drivers who can qualify really well under mixed to wet weather conditions. So seeing him getting knocked out in Q2 was pretty much a shock for me, and he managed to recover well in the race, which showed that the Mercedes did have the pace on the race day. So I feel like if it wasn't for the strategical fumble with both the drivers, the team should have scored a handful of points with both their drivers, who should have finished in the top 5. So I feel like I'm gonna give Lewis Hamilton, well, I'm gonna give him a 7 out of 10. So moving on to Carlos Sainz. Well, he qualified P6 for the race and he managed to finish P5. I feel like that is the maximum that the Ferrari could have done this weekend. It was kind of a shocker to witness how bad the Ferrari really was, and it genuinely seemed like they did not make any improvement over the summer break. P5, good result for the team. on his side of the garage, so I'm going to give Carlos Sainz a 9 out of 10. For his teammate Charles Leclerc though, well, it was not the smoothest weekend for him. It was kind of a scruffy one with one too many mistakes, a handful of lockups going into turn 1 during the free practice and in the qualifying session. He picked up an underfloor damage on lap 1, which completely killed his race. So I'm going to give Charles Leclerc a 7 out of 10 for the Dutch Grand Prix. Well, moving on to the stand-in driver for the weekend, Liam Lawson. Well, I'm going to give Liam Lawson a 8 out of 10. Well, the qualifying was not the best from him, and he got out-qualified by his teammate Yuki Tsunoda. But considering that it was his first race for the team and he only had one free practice session to get used to the car, you get used to the track, qualifying last is not a huge shock. But what he did in the race is what that matters. Considering the kind of chaos that we had, he managed to outrace his teammate to finish P13, and that is honestly a brilliant result with 17 cars still running on the track. So I'm gonna give Liam Lawson a solid 8 out of 10. So moving on to his teammate Yuki Tsunoda, well, he qualified well. He qualified P14, and in the race, well, it's partly due to the weird strategy that AlphaTauri decided to pull with him that costed him a handful of positions, but he finished behind his teammate in P16. So overall, not a solid or a good weekend from Yuki Tsunoda, so I'm going to give Yuki Tsunoda a 7 out of 10 for this weekend. And moving on to Kevin Magnussen, well, again, not a good weekend from him. He had a crash in the free practice session, lost one of the front wing if I'm not wrong, and considering the kind of part deficit that Haas was running this weekend, so he qualified P18 and he managed to finish the race P16 as the last car to cross the finish line. So not a good weekend from Kevin Magnussen, so for that I'm gonna give Kevin Magnussen a 4 out of 10. His teammate Nico Hülkenberg though managed to get into Q2 but not too up the field in Q2. Qualifying P14, Haas did really well with the strategy with which helped Nico Hülkenberg to finish the race P12. So a good result for the team, a good result for Nico Hülkenberg. I don't feel like he could have done anything more than that. So I'm going to give Nico Hülkenberg a 7 out of 10 for this weekend. So moving on to Alex Albon. Well, what a great qualifying lap he managed to put together. He qualified P4, which I think is the highest position that the Williams has qualified since I think 2017. So huge props to James Valls, the new team principal for the team, to the Williams team, and to Alex Albon. Honestly, what a tremendous kind of progress that the team has made as the season had progressed so far. I really hope they can keep this positivity, motivation and progress, speed of progress going into the future seasons of Formula 1 as well, as I really want to see Williams back up on top. So coming back to the topic, considering he qualified P4, he was running good. He lost a place to Fernando Alonso, and when the rain started coming down, Williams decided not to pit him. So Alex is one of those few drivers who actually stayed on the dry compound tire when the rain started to shower, the first rain started to shower. So it's pretty much all on him. He managed to do pretty much 40 plus laps on that first set of soft compound, and then he moved on to the medium tires. So if the strategy had actually been good for him, I feel like a P6, P5 was definitely on the cards for him, considering the pace of the car. So no mistakes from Alex's side, but yeah, I do genuinely feel like the strategy could have been a bit better for him. So I'm gonna give Alex Albon a 8 out of 10 for this weekend. For his teammate Logan Sargent though, well, it's not a good look for him. He managed to get into Q3, which is probably the highlight of his career so far, but he managed to crash out in Q3 on his cooldown lap, and that is not a good look. And he also crashed on the race, which caused for him to retire from the race. I really hope that Logan Sargent does pick up his form and puts up some good performance, because his teammate Alex Albon is single-handedly carrying that Williams team on his back, and he is the only driver who's making the team look really good in front of the media, in front of the sponsors. And it's very important for a team like Williams to perform well when they've got the car to do so, because if Williams performs really well and manage to get into Q3 very often and manage to score points, as much as camera coverage that they can get, it would really help Williams to garner some sponsors, which will really help them in bringing in some money into the team, which can help them upgrading their facilities and even their car. So it's important for Logan Sargent to step up his game, because there is pressure for that seat that he's in for next season. So for this weekend though, I'm going to give Logan Sargent a 2 out of 10, and I'm giving that 2 points because he actually managed to get into Q3. But other than that, it was a miserable weekend from Logan Sargent. Moving on to Zhou Guanyu, well, I'm going to give him a 5 out of 10. He qualified P15, and with him being one of the few runners who boxed on lap 1, he managed to get all the way up to P2. So it seemed like Zhou Guanyu was on cards to score some good points, or at least fight for a point, P10. But the Alfa Romeo just did not seem to have any pace, and the car just started to tumble down the order as the faster cars started to switch on to the intermediates. And finally he crashed out of the race, locking up into turn 1. So I'm gonna give Zhou Guanyu a 5 out of 10 for this weekend. For his team, Valtteri Bottas though, well, it was not a good qualifying session for him. Qualified P18 and he finished the race P14. It seems like the Alfa Romeo just does not have any pace to move up the field. Considering he finished P14 seems like a good result for the team. So I'm gonna give Valtteri Bottas a 6 out of 10 for this Dutch Grand Prix weekend. So moving on to the Alpine pair, well, let's start off with Pierre Gasly. Well, he qualified better than his teammate and he managed to finish the race higher up than his teammate. He qualified P12 and he was also one of the few runners who actually boxed on the right time to intermediates when the first rain started to shower. So it really propelled him up the field, and he was in P4, P5, and he fought his way up to P3. It's a good result for him. He crossed the finish line P4, and with Sergio Perez's penalty for speeding into the pit lane, which demoted him to P4, which promoted Pierre Gasly into the podium positions. So P3, 15 points in the bag for Alpine, is a good result for Pierre Gasly, and it's a solid performance from him. Great defense against Carlos Sainz. So I'm gonna give Gasly a solid 9 out of 10 for this weekend. Moving on to his teammate Esteban Ocon, well, he qualified P16 and managed to fight his way up into P10, the last points paying position. So a good weekend from him, but considering where his teammate Pierre Gasly finished, it seemed like P8 was definitely on the cards for Esteban. So I'm gonna give Esteban Ocon a 6 out of 10 for this Dutch Grand Prix weekend. So yes guys, that would be my driver rating for the Dutch Grand Prix. So let me know in the comments on what would be your driver rating for the Dutch Grand Prix. I'm excited to know your rating and your perspective on it. So let me know in the comments. So with that being said, I would like to wrap up this video guys. I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, make sure to hit that thumbs up button and don't forget to subscribe to the Autobahncast YouTube channel if you haven't already. Also hit that bell icon and turn on all notifications so you get notified whenever I upload a brand new video. It's me, your boy Autobahncast aka Vinesh, and I'm out. Love you guys, stay safe, peace.